Welcome in to episode 5 of The Roar Within. Yes, it's already episode 5. Can't believe it, but here we are. Trinitonian Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Lebo, sports reporter with the Trinitonian. I'm joined today by my counterpart, sports reporter with the Trinitonian, Cole Isaacson. How you doing?
Doing good. How about you, Scott?
I am so tired. Had a game this weekend with club soccer, but as always, I'm excited to talk about Trinity sports and get right into our interview. But first, we'll start with Athlete of the Week. Cole, you got anybody for this week?
Yes, I have Annette Smith of the track and field team. She won the 800 meter at the Trinity University Track and Field Invitational and was also a part of the 4x4 relay team that won as well. So a good job to her.
And then I've got Ella Whitaker, our first repeat winner of Athlete of the Week. She definitely deserved it this weekend, though, breaking a record for Trinity softball, the first player in their history to be an individual recording 5 runs on their own in a game. She did that at Southwestern, which is a game that we will cover right now. Cole, how did baseball and softball do over the weekend?
Well, baseball and softball both won their series on the road. Baseball, a tough start against the University of Dallas, a very unexpected loss, 12-8. We'll see how that hurts their NPI and their chances at an at-large, but able to salvage the series win, run ruling Dallas in the next 2 games. It's a series win, but that loss could come back to bite them later in the year. As for softball, a series win at Southwestern. They win the first game. They run rule the Pirates 13-5. They drop the next one 5-4, but then end up winning the second half of that Saturday doubleheader 9-4. So good results for them.
Other than baseball and softball, it was a pretty uneventful weekend for Trinity sports, but the Track and Field Invitational was this weekend. If you want to see more details on that event, you can head on over to the Trinity Tigers website. The Tigers did get the win as a team in that meet. It's only the first few weeks of the season for them. It's a great way to get it started. And that is all we have to cover from the weekend. Before we go into our interview section, though, we want to mention games that will happen during the week before this episode comes out. Men's golf and women's golf will both be at the West Region Invitational in Georgetown, Texas. That's at the Berry Creek Country Club. They start that on Monday the 31st, and they will be continuing in that event up until Tuesday. So that's a 2-day event for them. Nothing happening for the Tigers in any respects on Wednesday or Thursday. So that brings us all the way up until the release date of this episode, Friday. We'll go ahead and preview those matches after we have an opportunity to introduce you to this week's feature interview. Our star basketball player, Josie Napoli. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Josie is a senior communications major, has played on the basketball team here since transferring to Trinity after her freshman year. During her time on the team, Trinity is a 2-time regular season champion and 2-time tournament champion in the SCAC. They've qualified for the NCAA playoffs twice, as well as going to the SCAC championship this year as an underdog team in that tournament. Josie herself is a 3-time All-SCAC player, twice first team, and has been SCAC All-Tournament twice in a row. Needless to say, Josie, we're pretty happy to have you on today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll start off with a pretty simple question. How did you first start playing basketball?
So both my parents played sports in college. So my mom played basketball and then my dad played football and track, but his first love was basketball. So being born into a sport-oriented family, I didn't really have a choice. All my cousins, all very athletically inclined, some more than others. But I have an older brother and he loved sports and I idolized him and he always loved basketball. So I would say I really started sports at the age of 4 and I just continued and my love only grew. I kind of never really fell out of love with it.
How did you go from going one-on-one with your brother to competing competitively?
I've always had that competitive edge. Like I said, born into a sport family. We always wanted to beat each other. I mean, I started playing organized basketball when I was 4 or 5 years old in like the little rec leagues or whatever. But it was almost just right away. Like I loved playing him. He is the reason why I am this tough, fierce player that I am today. But any opportunity I had to compete, whether that be soccer, whether that be ballet, which was not my strong suit, I just took it and I ran with it because I loved it.
At what point do you think you took your competitive edge and switched from, I really like competing, this is fun, this is something I like to do, to, okay, I want to pursue this. I want to see if I can keep playing into the collegiate level and beyond?
It was always always my goal. I would say you don't really think about college when you're young, but come like middle school or even late elementary school, I was like, hey, like I want to be like my mom. Like I would love to do this after high school. But like my goal was like LSU and like these big D1 schools. And I think it wasn't until high school where I'm like, I don't know if this is meant for me. I think a smaller school would better suit my abilities, but I was kind of always the goal, but I always just wanted to be the best. Whatever that was, drawing or whatever, I just wanted to be the best at it that I can be. Like I wanted to max out my potential in any form.
So that was a great question, but I want to go back to the ballet thing.
Oh, gosh. Don't even.
I just never would have expected that from you. So can you talk about how you got into that and what that was like?
Yeah, so my parents were really adamant about trying to find out what me and my brother would love, right? So they put us into everything when we were kids. So that was tap and ballet for me and some gymnastics. But the teachers were like, I don't know if this is her thing, because I was like a lot more physical than these other kids. These little girls were just like, didn't want to be touched. And I'm over there like hitting people with batons. So that didn't last very long. So when I said ballet, I think maybe I gave it half a year. And my parents soon realized like, okay, this is not something she probably will excel at and want to continue further. And they were right. So they kept doing more organized sports.
When you get to high school, obviously, I think the competition level kind of ramps up a little bit and you really start to think about that collegiate level. Could you walk us through a little bit of your time in high school, maybe some of the things that you accomplished and then what the recruiting process started to look like through those years?
So I went to a really big state school my first 2 years. It was like 3,500 kids. It was huge, especially for Oregon. Played with some really, really good players, like top notch, went high D2, one of the most successful All-Americans D2. Coming into freshman year, I just wanted to be on varsity, but opportunities proposed itself where that D2 All-American, she hurt her knee. So then I had to step up in the point guard position as a freshman, and I got to learn a lot. I got to learn how to play a role. And I think that's really important because your role changes as time goes. But I think learning that at such like formative year really set the pace of, okay, this is how I have to play. This is who I have to play with. This is kind of the pace I have to play with to continue this further. Talk about accomplishments. I wouldn't even say some of my favorite accomplishments in high school were around basketball. I mean, with COVID, everything got shook my junior year. So my senior year, it was like a year of not playing an organized sport. Like you couldn't. Like if I wanted to do basketball training, I would do it outside because our lockdown in Oregon was a lot different than people's in Texas. And that continued the entirety of my senior year. So I took up golf. And my best friend, still to this day, she played golf. Her mom was a D1 golf. And so they just needed a fifth person on varsity. And am I good? No, not at all. Not even the slightest. But they needed a fifth person to travel to state. So I can say I went to state for golf. And you know that's a pretty good flex. Did I do anything? Heck no. Did my scores even count? No, but I was there for moral support. And I think that just that experience and that brag is still probably the biggest brag that I use to this day. Touching on recruiting, COVID kind of screwed everything up. I was getting looks, but after your junior year is when you get the most looks, and we couldn't play club ball. I mean, no one's recruiting Oregon girls outside high school unless you're like Cameron Brink. So that kind of got ruined for me, but my AAU assistant coach got the head coaching job at Pacific Lutheran. So that's where my safe space came, where I'm like, okay, I know I've got some good money to go there. Okay, I'm not going to go D1. I really wanted to go NAIA. But the opportunity didn't propose itself. I got the position. I just didn't get the money. So I just decided to do the safe bet and go to POU. But recruiting was a mess, y'all.
So now that you're at Pacific, what was the process like transferring to Trinity and how did you ultimately end up here?
It was kind of more of a commuter vibe. It was rainy all the time. I mean, I'm born in Oregon, so it's really not much of a change. I should have known, right? It was my goal to get out, but it just, the opportunity presented myself at Pacific Lutheran, but it just wasn't the college vibe that I was hoping. Like, I knew basketball-wise that personally I was going to be successful, but I knew that I am such a winner. Like, I don't really care about personal stuff. Of course, it's great. Don't get me wrong. Everyone loves a good accolade, but nothing beats the feeling of winning. Gonna lie, I was thinking maybe I just don't play anymore. I was like, maybe this is just the COVID curse. But my dad told me the transfer portal's going crazy, Josie. You might as well just put your name in there. So I knew I wasn't gonna stay at Pacific Lutheran. I didn't know where that was gonna lead me. I was thinking of maybe just going home, but within 10 minutes of entering my name in the transfer portal, the old assistant coach gave me a call. And I was almost like flabbergasted. I was like, I literally just entered my name in the transfer portal 5-10 minutes ago. So I think I wouldn't even have thought of Trinity, but the idea of it happened so fast where I was like, okay, like this is interesting. And so my dad and I were like, let's just take a trip to San Antonio. Let's visit it. I'm like, okay, I can't imagine myself going that far away from home. But then I came here, and I think the most important thing that stuck out to me was my life outside of basketball was going to be great. I'm really into media, so I loved their media department. And then there was more to do. Like, it's a small city, but there's actually stuff to do around San Antonio. And I think the Trinity alumni base was like, wow, everyone loves Trinity. And even people in Oregon knew what Trinity was. I think it was like, okay, if basketball fails, my life in school will still be fine if I go to this school.
You mentioned before learning in high school how to be a role player. I've interviewed you before for the Trinitonian, so I know this is a theme that continues. Can you talk about what your role was like in your first year at Trinity?
So coming in, we had some 6 strong seniors, some bigger personalities than others, but there's 6 seniors that have been super successful in this program. And I knew you kind of had to tread the waters carefully. Like, I wasn't going to come in and step on anybody's toes. And this is my role just as a person, you know, like you don't want to ruffle any feathers. But again, I was like, what can I do to play? Like, I know they don't need me to score a whole bunch. And I had numerous talks with Cams where, how do I play? And he just told me, get Ashlyn Milton at the time, very notable 3-point shooter, get her 3. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be the best at it. So I took that role very seriously. And I knew that wasn't going to be my role the entire time I was there. I mean, I knew they were going to graduate. I knew I was going to have to step in a bigger scoring role. But I think my focus has always been, what can I succeed at that moment? Or what the team needs me to do. And that got me to play a lot my sophomore year. And I'm very grateful that happened. But I just took my role very seriously. I'm like, they don't need me to score unless I'm open and wide open. They just need me to get the All-American, her 3-point.
You mentioned that you would step into a larger scoring role as your career evolved. What was it like taking on that more responsibility?
Come junior year, the first game, I was like, I need to score. This team needs me to score. I have to figure this out. But I think the game kind of prevails itself to you. The ball finds itself in your hands. You take what's given to you. And that just happens. Like, my sophomore year, they weren't looking for me in that way. My junior year, people knew I'd been here before, same with Maggie Robbins. So the ball just gravitated more in our hands just because we were ready for that platform. And that's nothing I did per se. Like, I'm not like, give me the ball, you know, like that, nothing like that. But I just think with more experience does come more responsibility.
There's some difference between being the focal point of a team and being a complement to the talents around you. And did you feel that difference in winning your championships your sophomore and junior year? Or did the 2 championships kind of feel the same?
Well, I definitely think my junior year is a little bit more fun just because we were crushing everybody my sophomore year. Don't get me wrong, it was great, but it was almost like if you lose this, you are a huge disappointment my sophomore year. So it was like a different type of weight when our junior year, I mean, we only lost 5-6 games, but it was like we had to fight through so much adversity that year, you guys. Like, it was crazy that the way we were playing was just so much fun. So I definitely think the junior year was more gratifying because we had to fight through so much to get to that point when sophomore year, it was like, holy crap, we're good. We're not losing.
So I wanted to talk about sophomore year and that team because you guys went very, very deep into the NCAA tournament. What was that run like?
That was insane. I think that's another thing that I'll never forget is hosting that first round. That was just crazy. I mean, I got in foul trouble, so I think I played like 5 minutes that first game. But just even being a part of it, being on the bench, like everything was just screaming and like the whole fan section wearing white. I would say it was really fun. And then going to Tufts, that was quite interesting. However, I did feel quite sad after that loss because we were better. You know, like that team, I genuinely believe to this day could have won a natty. Like, I genuinely believe that. So losing that game, there was so much more weight because it was like, ugh, we have so much more to squeeze out of this season and we just didn't hit it tonight.
Well, there was some controversy there because I know that many people in the sports information department, including myself, thought that you guys should have hosted.
Yeah, I think Region 10 normally gets screwed over when it comes to hosting. And the fact that we even host first region was crazy. But I knew that there was going to be no way that we were going to be able to host that second weekend, which I thought we should have. I mean, number 4 team, 3 team in the nation, like, how are we not hosting? And so going to Tufts, like, that environment, I don't even know how they were able to host. It was like their fans were on the floor. And, like, I could be in the corner and one of their fans in the student section could be, like, covering my face so I couldn't even see Maggie Robbins drum the ball. So that experience was crazy, but being a part of something big like that and seeing, like, Christopher Newport play, I was like, this is awesome because these are teams that I knew about. It's not the outcome we wanted, but at least I got to say, hey, like, I got to see it at some point, you know?
Transitioning from that to this year, very different year, probably have different takeaways from it. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think going into the first game, we had some adversity off the court that we had to face, and it was a lot. And I think with a younger team, a lot of them who didn't see minutes prior, Jamie Reedy decided to leave, and Maggie Robbins left, which are 2 big players that played huge minutes for us. And we needed people to be able not to fill their role, not be them, but like we needed someone to step up. And I don't think that happened right away. It's definitely different than my past 2 seasons I had at Trinity, which winning was the end all. I think this year was really teaching me as a person how to make a difference. You know, and that doesn't just mean make a difference scoring, but like, what can I be doing off the court? What can I be doing for these girls? And I definitely think it was eye-opening. I wouldn't have traded it for the world. I mean, I still think there's some games that, you know, like we only lost to Illinois Wesleyan by 2, and that's a team that was like number 2 in the nation at the time. And I take those as little morale wins. And it's sad that we couldn't close out some of those close games, but we did have a lot of close games that I don't think are as noticeable as, you know, others. But this year was more for me as a person than as a player.
So I want to talk about the McMurray games, specifically how it ended, but also the ebbs and flows of that entire game. I mean, so many changes in that game.
I think that weekend as a whole, everyone felt the weight of it. Like, guys, we win or we go home. And same with me. I woke up, and I think that McMurray game was super exciting because we lost to them twice earlier in the season, but both those games, like, I can't even go back and watch because, like, that just wasn't our Trinity brand of basketball. And I think we knew that. And I think that's exciting to know, like when everyone's on the same page that if we play Trinity basketball, there's no way we're losing this. And I think it was super exciting because it was our first close game that we pulled out all season. And so I not even for a second thought we were going to lose that game, especially at the end. We were up by like 10. They cut it to 2-3. They took the lead. But I was like, there's no way. There is no way we're going to lose that game. So I have to give props to McMurray. They made it to the Sweet 16. That's a well-coached team. I respect him. I respect all the players. But we just showed out that night, and I think that's super exciting.
With the way you guys played in that tournament, do you think you can look back at this season and say, oh, it was definitely a success for me and what I was trying to do?
Like I said, and I want this to be remembered, roles change. Someone doesn't need to be me next year or Josie Napoli or the Maggie Robbins. You know, people don't need to be that. It's just take the responsibility that's given to you and try to apply that in the best way possible. And I hope that's what's taken away from all this. And I would like to say this was a success. And, you know, some teams gel later than others. To hang my hat on that tournament, I have no regrets.
I wanted to pivot the conversation a little bit to kind of 2 things. One being Cam Hill, who's been your coach your entire time here. And 2, the unique system that you run. I love watching it just because you press so much.
Right.
And it's so fun to see everybody else flounder and pressure. What do you make of playing that way?
I have pressed before, but I haven't run in a system where that's your bread and butter. my sophomore year, that's all we did. Like, half-court offense was not an offense for us. Our offense was getting steals in the press and getting wide open, easy layups. However, we had the personnel to do so. We had 3, 4, 5, 9 girls taller that were long, and that's what kind of makes the press. The 5 people that came in off the bench could start easily at any other school. Like, our second 5 were just as good as our first 5, and I genuinely believe that. But then last year, we kind of had to pivot away from that a little bit just because we didn't have the legs for it. We would get tired. And I think this year we had to figure out how we define ourselves, right? Because a lot of these girls haven't been in the system to run the press. I mean, even Kylie, who had to step up in a bigger role, she's never really ran the Trinity press because we kind of strayed away from that last year. And so we kind of had to shift. And that means take on different defenses. Like, guys, this is my first year at Trinity that we ran a 2-3 zone. We have never run a 2-3 zone. We've always had this, I can't even explain it, but I'm not going to explain it because I don't want to give Cam's cheat codes away. But it was just this different press, but with the personnel we had, it just didn't best fit. However, I loved the press, especially when it was on full effect. Oh my gosh, it was just the most gratifying basketball, and I would say fun basketball, because you just really didn't need to work that hard. You just kind of had to work hard the first 10 seconds, and then you're on defense again, and then get another steal, and then it was easy. It was easy basketball.
Josie, you've brought a pretty interesting debate, pretty serious. Would you like to present that for us?
Yeah, so especially with March Madness going on right now, you hear a lot of NIL talk, and I think I heard Charles Barkley say multiple times, NIL is ruining college basketball or whatever, but I thought it was interesting the NIL pay discrepancy between female and male athletes. Do you know Chloe Kitts from South Carolina? She's their best player. My dad met her uncle, and he said that she gets about $50,000 a year when her boyfriend, who's on South Carolina's men's team, who's not very good, South Carolina's #1 in the nation right now, he gets $350,000 a year, which I thought was just so interesting. I'm like, how does this girl, who is like one of the best players in basketball right now, make $300,000 less? Do you guys have any takeaways?
Well, other than that's not cool. I mean, I think that's the basic answer. I think the appropriate thing I think we should be discussing is ways to combat that.
Yeah, I think talking about like a player who's not the guy and he's making that much more, I mean, that's where you really see this discrepancy. Like, he's making more than somebody who's the star player of the #1 team. Right. That's just ridiculous.
Right.
But I think really to address something, you have to find its core, figure out where it's coming from and address it there. And that's a tougher question to get to. On the surface, it seems clear, but when you really start to ask about it, you know, all the normal conversation about, well, he's probably covered more, he gets more ads, all goes out the window because he's not the guy.
Right.
And she's the girl for her team.
I think especially over the past year or two, with the rise of Caitlin Clark, I think media coverage has increased a bunch. That will only help NIL further, but I think the main thing is media coverage. And I just haven't heard anything about the South Carolina men's team, so I'm almost surprised. It's like Cooper flag. Okay, I could get that. You know, like I could get behind that, but I just don't really understand that. And there was actually like an Instagram post that came out today, like the most followed on Instagram in March Madness right now. And the 4 of the top 5 was like Paige Beckers, Juju, and they were all above. At number 5 was Cooper at 1 million. And like Paige, I don't know, has like 4 or 5 million. So I thought that was really interesting to know. But I also think that's because the media coverage. And I think someone like Paige is looking to get more endorsements than other players. But I guess I would want to ask you guys, being the sports enthusiasts, do you think NIL is ruining college basketball?
NIL's been excellent for football.
Right.
I love everything that's going on with college football right now. I love the matchups that we're getting with conference realignment. I love that the best players are on the best teams. And also that it distributes the talent a little bit in college football, because it used to be in prior years that the Alabama bench was better than Louisville's starting team.
Right.
And that's just not the case anymore, because you can leave. If you're the backup guard at Alabama, you can say, okay, I'm just going to start at Wake Forest.
And make money. Make money, yeah.
So I think it's been great there. I do not like what it's done to college basketball, because you see that we have 4 1 seeds in the men's Final Four, which I think will be an excellent Final Four, but it's been kind of a crappy tournament, in my opinion.
I totally agree.
And if you look at the graphics of who's started where, I think Purdue was the only one in the Sweet 16 that had all 5 that originated at that university.
Right.
And because of that, we're not seeing any upsets.
Football is a sport where you don't play as many games. You can't, because of how physically exhausting it is. And so it suits an environment where there's a few really, really good teams. But in a sport like basketball, where you're going to have a 64-team end-of-season tournament, I want some of that talent to be spread a little bit more. I don't want somebody on a 14 seed to say, yeah, I'm not making money, I'm going to go. Like, I don't like that. So it's interesting to ask that question overall. In a number of ways, the NCAA is an organization that is dominated by football. What football wants is what happens.
Right.
You see it recently with conference realignment. The things worked for football. If you're in the ACC, the All Coast Conference now, you can travel from the West Coast to the East Coast for a 1-week game if you're the football team. But if you're the basketball team and you have to go for a conference game in the middle of the week all the way across the country, it doesn't work. But that's what happened because football sets the standard. I don't like how connected the NIL deals are to the school themselves. I've always thought that college athletes should be able to get paid for their ability to be in the media, right? They're bringing in all this attention. If they want to go sign an advertisement deal or do something like that, that's fine to me. I just don't like how connected it is to the university in the way that they can say, we're going to offer you this money to come to our school. It's a recruiting
tactic now.
Exactly. I don't like that aspect.
I think the one thing that NIL has done is it's extended people's time in college. Yeah. And I think that's good for women's sports because you think of Haley Van Lith, one of the more notable players. I mean, it's making college seem more attractive for these players thinking about taking that next step professionally. I don't know if that carries on so much with the men's because they can make a crap ton of money going into the NBA. But I think it is kind of ridiculous how everyone is transferring now. And they're not even transferring because they hate the school, they hate their team. They just are transferring now just to get money. Yep. And that is something where I'm like, where is a system? There is no system because one team can be really good this year, then next year they're crap. Like, I'm a huge Oregon State fan, and last year they made it to this Elite Eight, and then their starting 5 plus their 2 coming off the bench left.
I think it's really great for the professional leagues, and I think you bring up a really good point that people are staying in college more because the NFL has a really nice pathway where you watch a guy for 4 years in college, and then you watch him in the NFL, and you know who he is, and you know his background. And basketball really lacks that because a lot of people are coming from Europe. You're only in 1 year of college, so people don't know who you are, and then you're in the NBA. There's not as much identification with fans. So I think that'd be really good for the pro leagues to have people in college for longer. Yeah. You go through 3 tournament runs with one player. They go to the NBA. You might follow them in the NBA.
Right.
But building on that, I wanted to ask you, I don't know what the NIL experience is as a Division III athlete, how it differs, if there's anything at all. So what's it been like for you?
Yeah, there's nothing. I know there's like a thing called Open Doors, which a lot of Division III programs have, but I don't know how much people reach out to you. Businesses don't reach out to me. I don't really think they care. I think that is something that we can explore, and I think that's something interested that we can use, especially at a place like Trinity. If everyone else is using that as a recruiting tactic, why don't we? I mean, it sounds bad, but to be at that level, you kind of have to match that level to an extent because that NIL is not going anywhere. They can put regulations on it, but I don't see it ever going away. I think definitely with local businesses, I think it's a good thing that they can go upon, especially at Trinity, because Trinity's more known in San Antonio. Maybe not the big ones, but like just these small local, I know like Rise Up Acai, like not too far away. Like we go there every single day. Like if they reached out for a partnership, without a doubt, and I don't even care if it means they give me money, but does that mean if I get 1 free acai a month? Yeah, I'll take up on that. I just think those are things that can be explored at a smaller scale.
I think with that, we'll close it for the interview section. Josie, thank you so much for joining us. So much fun to get to know you. Yeah, we'll move into previewing games for next week, Cole. Starting off with track and field. Once again, they are in action this weekend. They're at the David Noble Relays at Angelo State. Softball and baseball, Cole, what are they getting up to this weekend?
Well, softball will have their usual Friday game at Shriner. They'll go to Kerrville this weekend for a 3-game series against the Mountaineers, and then they will have a Saturday doubleheader against the very same Mountaineers, 3 games in total. Baseball will also be playing Shriner, but at home. First game will be Friday night, and then Saturday and Sunday will have day games.
The only other events that we have coming up come in the tennis category. Yes, that's right. From now, Friday the 4th, all the way until Friday the 11th, we've only got Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, track, tennis, softball, baseball. Men's tennis is on the road in Columbus, Ohio. They're up against Denison on Saturday. On Sunday, then, they're up against Case Western up in Cleveland, Ohio, while women's tennis get their action underway against Southwestern at 2 p.m. on Sunday. That's in Georgetown. So that brings us all the way up until next episode, episode 6. Of course, you can find all you need to know about this podcast on the Trinitonian website and via the Trinitonian Instagram. As always, I'm Scott Lebo. I'm joined by Cole Isaacson, and go Tigers.